Hello and welcome to Real Estate Divas. I am Kristen Gerst of Capricorn Mortgage Investments here with the fabulous J. Lee Thompson of Texel Real Estate. And today we are going to be talking about how to walk into a property the first time you've ever seen it and estimate those big ticket rehabs. A lot of people know, oh, I'm going to spend this on flooring. I can do this, I can paint for this amount.
Well, if you've been doing it for a while, then absolutely. Walking through a property, you're like going through your checklist, okay? And you walk out of there and you're like, okay, this is a $35,000 flip. That's how much it's going to cost me. Maybe give or take a couple of thousand. But most people, when they first walk through, they don't really have a clue as to some of these tickets, the big ticket items, and the ones that can really sink a flip quick.
Absolutely. And if you don't, just knowing, hey, should I be replacing the entire HVAC system, or do I just need to do that outdoor unit? Yeah. What about the roof, which this lady here is a complete expert on roofing. It is shocking the amount of knowledge that she has about roofs. And then foundation, because, foundation is one of those, especially depending on where you are in the nation, there are places that just have bad foundations, and
Texas is one of them, really and truly. I have clients all the time, just not even with my own flips or property that I'm investing in, but also just clients. Oh, I don't want this house. It's got foundation issues, or they did foundation work on it 5 years ago. I don't want this house, and I tell every single one of them, I'm like, look,
you're not going to own a house. You're not going to get a house.
New builds may not have it today, but wait a couple of years, because in Texas, between the really, really dry months where if you're not soaking your foundation, then it's going to see movement. And then also, we have some really wet periods as well. It's just, you're going to end up with some sort of foundation issues.
Absolutely.
It's just a matter of time.
It is. And so, and depending on where you're at, either you've got a house that's had foundation repair or it's going to have foundation repair in the future.
Exactly. So let's go ahead and get started. Our first one happens to be foundation. And most of these are not sexy, right? You walk into the house and it's not, oh, wow, I can't wait to pick out the flooring, or I can't wait to pick out, the new light fixtures and the tile and the this. It's not sexy. These are the ones that you really don't want to have to deal with, but they're pretty typical in all properties.
Right. But also foundation it's one of those things that when you know that all the houses are getting foundation repair, there are a zillion foundation repair companies out there.
Yep.
Not all of them are created equal.
No.
So you don't really want to go with the lowest.
In all of these that we're talking about today, never go with the lowest, because there's a reason. There's a reason. They're either, chucking the truck that's not, you won't see tomorrow, or you can't get a hold of when something's not done right, or maybe it doesn't pass the inspection. They're not going to come fix anything. And then they're probably cheap for a reason.
Right.
So,
and they're definitely not. When you're looking at your foundation company that you want to hire, make sure that they have to bond in to that lifetime guaranteed insurance program, wherever they're at. So if there's a lifetime guarantee on that foundation, make sure that company is listed and its license number, and make sure that they've been around more than 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. And it's hard to tell sometimes, even on the Better Business Bureau, when you're checking people out, which you should be checking people out, that's one of those things, I don't know how many people, they're like, oh, well, they seem like good guys, and so I decided to hire them. No, check these people out, do your research, get some references. But even whenever you're looking at the Better Business Bureau, some of these companies will list themselves and they're like, we've got an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Well, that doesn't mean crud if they listed yesterday. There's no time,
there's no time for that foundation to go bad.
Yeah, there's no time.
It looks great for a month.
Or for anybody to make a complaint. Right. It's people that have been with the Better Business Bureau for years and they still have an A+ rating that actually means something.
Right.
If you've only been with them for less than a year, then that means nothing. That rating means absolutely, you start with an A+ and then get downgraded as the complaints come in.
Right.
So anyway, that's do your homework.
So there are investor-friendly ones out there.
Absolutely.
Even on the low end, just for press pier, which is the most common on a foundation. I used to pay 150 to 175. I can tell you that that is cheap right now.
Yeah, that's definitely gone up. Yeah.
And you don't want to pay, and there's still guys bidding that.
Yeah, there is. There is. I'm going to go ahead and plug my favorite real quick, Align Foundation. They're my go-to. They just are. They have gone out to properties of mine and told me I was confident they needed foundation repair, and they've gone out there, taken a look at it, and turned around and said, no, this is just regular settling. There's nothing we can do here, which is what you want. You don't want somebody selling you, because then you can't trust their opinion. They're going to sell you a foundation whether it needs it or not, no matter what.
Right.
Real quick plug
Yeah.
for Align Foundation. They walked a house for me maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, and they said, "You don't own this, right?"
That is not what you want to hear.
And then we immediately listed it the next day.
Yeah,
and took a $10,000 loss just to get out of it.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's really, I mean,
Thanks,
you're talking
Align
about
Foundation.
Josh.
Thank you,
too,
Align.
right? Josh walked up.
Josh Spector?
Yeah,
Josh Spector.
Yeah. But yeah, he's walked properties for me, come out and given me estimates, that sort of thing. And foundation estimates are typically free. So definitely get your estimate, find out what that is.
So a good price per pier. You're looking for that company that comes in around $250, and I think
Around
Align,
$250 is
around-
really the going rate.
right. So when you go out and you estimate and you're looking at how much of that house, a good rule of thumb is taking the square footage of that house and round up a little bit, right? What's the footprint of it on the lower level if it's just a single story? And I divide by 100 and I multiply by my price per pier. And that'll kind of give you a ballpark estimate. Now, what doesn't that include? If it's really, really bad in one section and that's close to like a bathroom, I would assume that you're going to have to be running a couple new water lines.
Well, and that's something that's really tricky in itself. And I have a couple of examples that I've lived through. Is one, if you're the buyer, obviously you want to check that out. You need to have that all the plumbing tested, especially if you're getting it done. If you're selling it and it needs foundation work, then when you're negotiating that contract, you do, because some of these older homes, they already have leaks as they are, and these are, because it's cast iron, it's going to be a little leaky, all the plumbing needs to be replaced. But if you're flipping a property, who's replacing all of the plumbing? You're not. You're replacing what got broken. So when you're negotiating that contract with a buyer coming in, you go ahead and you do that static test in the beginning. You know what that leak percentage is. You adjust the foundation, and if that leak percentage is still the same, once you finish, you're not doing any plumbing work for the buyer.
Well, and at what point what year did plumbing go to PVC?
I don't know.
I don't know that specific year. I know
If y'all
I
know,
the lead
drop
things-
it in our
yeah, drop
comments.
it.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about, because you learn as you go along during flips, right? And I made this mistake maybe 10, 11 years ago, and I only made it once. I had the
All it takes is once.
All it takes is once. I had the foundation fixed. In fact, everything, we had brand new master bathroom, brand new kitchen, gorgeous flooring.
Gorgeous.
Of course, everything was beautiful. And we listed it, and then they did a sewer line static test to see, is there a sewer line? And because the house was built in 1968, there was no sewer line remaining underneath the master.
It had disintegrated.
It had the cast iron was completely gone.
Nice.
And so we ended up having to jackhammer
the floor.
into the brand new floor, and then we had to go put it back together.
Yep.
And so had I done it from the beginning, the first thing you want to do on a flip is you want to have the foundation fixed.
Yep.
Because then it's got to settle a bit before you go and fix the sheetrock cracks.
Otherwise, you are redoing what
Everything.
you've already done. You've already spent the money for the flooring. You've already spent the money to have your paint and your plaster look fabulous. And then now you've got to do the foundation. And I can tell you from I can't even tell you how many transactions where I've represented the buyer and we insisted that foundation work get done and we negotiated for that. And then the seller thinks, well, I'm protected because I say I'm not doing any cosmetic repairs. Well, guess what? You're doing cosmetic repairs because you're not selling that house to anybody else without it. So now the buyer kind of has you by the balls.
Right.
You know, I mean, now your house is kind of jacked up on the interior, and if you don't keep them on the hook to buy this house and fix those things, you're still going to have to fix it to put it back on the market.
Absolutely. And so you really want to pay to fix it. And
Yep.
there's absolutely no reason to say, oh, I'm going to back out of it. You know, but
Yep.
anyways, I mean, you live and you learn, but yeah, you want to fix your foundation, and then you want to do a plumbing check and a sewer line check. Don't
Yep.
just do one, do both.
Both. Well, and so real quick, those are like the highlights of definitely foundation first, and always do it before you do a dang thing in the house.
And about $250 per piers, and if you're looking at an average foundation repair on, say, a 2,000 square foot single story house, you're
Well, obviously, it's going to depend on how much movement.
It is, but I mean, you're talking. I mean, as long as it's not super severe, 5,000. I
Yeah.
mean, and people are like, "Wow, $5,000 for a foundation repair." Yeah. Could it be much worse? If you're looking at something that's off by 6 to 8 inches, and you're going
to have to lift most of the house to make it. You're putting piers all the way around the house
or mud
and
jacking.
interior.
I'm just talking about doing pressed pier, but it's kind of
typically you're
bowl.
probably going to end up looking at somewhere in the 5,000 or less range. But there are exceptions to every rule, and it depends on each and every house because there's no way to estimate that.
1960 is the answer to your question.
1960?
At least some random Google thing.
Well, but I mean,
That's
I've
when
been
they
in
started-
how
internet.
that's
That's
when they started
building.
That's when they
Yeah.
started maybe using PVC, but when did they stop using cast iron? Because in the 60s, I mean, hell, my house had cast iron
Yeah.
under it. It was built in 68, so I know 1960 is not our answer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe that's when it started, like on new builds.
I mean,
or something
I
like
would
that.
probably estimate somewhere in the 80s.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's probably cast iron down in some 1980s houses too, depending
I don't
on where you're
know.
at.
1980.
Oh, okay. All right. So that's
Yeah.
1980.
Yeah.
Good. My guess is good.
Hey.
Hey, hey.
So besides that, then we're looking at, there's several different types that we can look at. So we did our research of the different types of piers that you can get. The most common is the pressed pilings, 8 to 10 feet into the ground. You don't usually get past active sole, and so this is considered a short-term, cheaper route to go. Then we have the steel piers, which are, I mean, those are kind of the ones you want if you can get to rock. Here in Texas, you've got to drill pretty far in order to get until you can hit rock, depending on what area you're doing this. So that's not always a solution in Texas because it'll bend underneath the pressure. And then we have reinforced concrete mini piles. That one is kind of the same as the pressed pilings, usually comes with a guarantee of a minimum depth, reaches past active soil. The helical piers.
Helical piers.
Yeah, that one is meant for light load. Foam's become really popular, especially in driveways. Like whenever you've got like that huge crack going down the driveway.
Is that how they're able to fix that in like a day and make it look perfect?
Yeah.
Is with foam.
Foam.
Wow.
Yeah. They just put some foam under or like sometimes I know, let me pivot. Sometimes I know whenever you drive up to a house and there's a huge differential between the driveway and getting into the garage.
It, yes.
So you can't actually access that garage with your car.
They can foam it up.
They foam it up.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's an option. And
which is different than mud jacking, because mud jacking is where they actually put cement. Like they put concrete.
Yep.
They drill like a small hole and then pump concrete under it, and it'll
kind of lift
up these, lighter.
And those are the ones that are kind of the top 5 options as far as foundation goes. I mean, there's a ton of other options out there depending on what your needs are and where you're located, but those are the top 5.
But yeah, expect to pay around $250 a pier, $225 I've been hearing too. So it really just depends on where you're at. And just make sure, get references and look at what they've been doing.
Seriously.
And research the people, see how long they've been there. Really, length that company has been in business is key.
And that's really key with most of these big ticket items. You want somebody that's been in business for a minute because they've had to they've had to honor warranties. This is important.
Yeah. Yeah.
And especially
if it's a lifetime warranty and they've been in business 20 years, yeah, they're going to have to go out there and re-level. There'll be some settling and they'll have to re-level some staff.
Yeah. And so if you're planning on doing this for a business and not just your one-time, one and done type of thing, then you definitely want some reputable contractors that you can say their warranty means something. You can say they've been in business. And so that's also part of a negotiation whenever you're going to close on that house, when you're selling it to somebody else, because you can without a doubt guarantee that these people are going to be in business.
Yeah. No, that's good.
So,
but rule of thumb about, somewhere in that 250 range per pier. Take your square footage, divide by 100. If you're walking in and you notice that there's foundation repair, you might walk into a house and it might feel fine. And if it does, then great,
Well, and that happens too, but yeah.
But your best deals are going to be on something that most likely has a really scary foundation. And
that most retail buyers are going to be scared to death to even put money on.
They won't even touch it.
Yeah.
Which is great, which is an opportunity. So, and knowing that, the average foundation repair, yes, they can get expensive, but if you can walk in and go, okay, this might only be about $5,000 to $10,000, and this would totally fit in the budget for what we're making an offer on. And you just put that in and go, all right, this is how I'm making my offer.
Yep. So on to the next one would be HVAC.
Yes.
Yay.
And I just had to replace a 5-ton system. And it was just for the upstairs.
Uh-huh.
And it was $8,000.
Wow. That HVAC can add up quickly, all of these can, but HVAC can add up quickly. But one good rule of thumb, a lot of people wonder, like I just did an inspection on a house down in Midlothian 2 days ago, and it had a 5-ton unit for 2,200 square feet. That's large for that square footage, and especially for a new build.
Right, and that should be a 4-ton unit. So you're going to estimate about 500 to 600 square feet per tonnage. You don't want more tons than what the square footage is.
More does not mean better. And especially if we're talking about a new build, or if we're talking about a home that you plan on putting in new windows or, new insulation, if you're trying to seal up that home, because what ends up happening if you have too much tonnage for that property, for the square footage of that property, it creates moisture. It can create mold. It can end up being an issue.
Not only that, but it's also hard on the unit. So the unit ends up burning out within a couple years because it's constantly clicking on and then clicking off. Clicking on, clicking off.
Yep.
And once that happens, every day, it only runs for 20 minutes at a time because it cools too efficiently.
Exactly.
It's all of a sudden your unit's burned out and you're buying another one. You're like, well, this was supposed to
be top of the line and last forever and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But that's part of it, is more is not always better.
Sometimes it's just more.
Sometimes it's just more.
So again, 500 to 600 square feet per ton, make sure that you're looking at. So like 1.5 ton unit usually cools 750 to 900 square feet.
Yeah. So some of those smaller homes, whenever you're talking like 1950s, 2-bedroom, 1-bath bungalows, that would be fine. Although with older homes, if you're not sealing them up like tight, then you're ending up, you might want to go ahead and go a little over, just because you have so much draft in that property.
Right. And if you are talking about those older homes, making sure that you have insulation.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them don't have any insulation in the walls.
Exactly.
So if you have no insulation in the walls, obviously, you might have to go up a little bit just to be able to keep up with it.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in the South and you've got like a ton of, $100 degree days,
Yeah.
So price goes up every freaking year, and I think it's a racket personally. I hate it. I'm like, they're always like, oh, well, we can't use that SEER rating anymore. Now we've got to do this one. And what what happened to all these other units that didn't sell last year? What, are we just putting those in the trash? You know?
Well,
Why can't I get a 13 SEER? That was great for last year. Why is all of a sudden 12 months later it doesn't work anymore?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of a racket. I mean,
it's a racket.
That's one of those things, but everything's supposed to be more energy efficient and blah, blah, blah. So, you know, I mean, I know we're constantly improving, just like cars are constantly improving. And so the price of things keeps going up. And that's,
Annoying.
and we're going to see it on every single one of these.
Well, and I'm, you know,
big-ticket items.
I'm just going to throw this out there just to let people know how bad stuff is going to get, especially in the next 6 months. And I really believe that this is probably disruption of supply chain somewhere along the way. Appliances. I cannot get appliances that I used to be able to get in 2 or 3 days.
Yep.
It's now taking like 2 weeks. If I can get it at all. I had, like, because I'm finishing up a flip right now. And the only thing lacking on this thing is the refrigerator. And I had it ordered several weeks ago. I got an email yesterday morning saying, oh, it's back ordered till October 30th.
Get out.
And I'm like, well, that's not going to fly. And
Yeah.
of course, I have everything built in.
Yeah.
So that cabinet was created
For this
specific fridge.
Yeah.
And so we're making renovations to it. We're making
Wow.
a renovation, you know, the kitchen again, and it's
Yeah.
basically a done deal. So in addition to that, I've seen appliances go up around 25% in price.
Wow.
So, and that's only been in
And
probably
that's not
6
even one of
months.
what. That's just extra. We didn't even put that on
I
our
know,
big ticket
but I'm just
items.
letting people know. I mean, that's why I'm expecting HVAC equipment in the next 12 months to probably go up astronomically. So if you're looking to put in a new AC system, do it right now.
Yeah.
Don't wait. Get the end of year specials.
Labor Day special.
Whatever they got
Yeah.
going, get it and put that in, because I think prices are going to go up severely on that stuff.
Well, and like when you were talking in the SEER, for those who don't know, SEER means seasonal energy efficient rating. So the higher the SEER number, then supposedly the more efficient the unit is for.
And then they have like a minimum SEER rating. And of course, what you had a couple years ago
Yes.
might only be a 13, and now you need like a 2000 series.
Well, and
There's going to be HVAC
We're gonna
guys out
say
there
this.
who see me and know me, and they're going to be like, Kristen, really?
yeah. Did you have to do that?
Did you have to do that? Did you
Yeah.
have to say we're, you know, it's a racket?
Well, I will say again, and you'll hear this throughout this episode, is don't go with the cheapest. I remember getting into the whole real estate game when I had to replace the HVAC on my personal house right after we moved in, like a year and a half, and the warranty, they were barely making it run. I do not like a hot house. I get cranky quick. And so we ended up going with the lowest bid and got burnt big.
Yeah.
So again, don't go with the lowest bid. There's a reason for it. You know, people are not to assume the worst, but sometimes they're grabbing parts from other places, and it's not always the cleanest of deals.
You know, when I first got started in this business like 15 years ago, and I was doing a bunch of Section 8 rentals, and depending on where they were located, I lost a lot of outdoor AC units. So I was going with cut rate guys back then, because I'm like, just
put something in.
on
It's
there,
going to get
because
stolen in a month anyway.
Exactly. I mean, I remember when, like, what was that, April 2007, I lost like 5 AC units, and one of them was on a house that was occupied. So then you're building the Machiavelli cages around them, but
Yeah.
it's still, I'm like, what is compatible with whatever's in that attic?
Yeah.
So speaking of which, a lot of times your outdoor AC needs to be replaced more
At the
often.
same time, yeah.
But more often than the
with
furnace.
Yeah, yeah. But usually you want to go ahead and do both at the same time, just because then they're both the same SEER number. They're both the same, either model or something like that, just because it makes it easier. They're more compatible with each other, and it'll be more
But
energy efficient.
price-wise, you are basically doubling.
Yeah.
So depending on your budget and the age of that inside unit, because a lot of people are like, I've bought houses that have 20-year-old furnaces that are still working well.
Yep.
But there's a brand new outdoor condenser.
And it can work.
It can work.
It
As
can
long as
work.
that can work,
Yep.
I'm good with it. But 20 years, kind of old.
Yep.
I mean, what's the max you like to go there?
I don't know. It's as
you're
long
flipping a
as
house, I
as
mean-
long as it can go. I
I'm
have
just-
my AC guy come out and say, "Hey, can you give me an estimate of what the life
Yeah, I like-
expectancy on this unit is?"
I like to just know it's not a fire hazard up there,
Yeah.
or it doesn't have like rats that have like chewed on wires.
Yeah.
I've had that.
I've had that too. Well, so the
But
next price, yeah,
Price. We've got average 3-ton unit, 3,500, or 5-ton unit, and this is just for the outdoors. Okay, 4,500. I mean, so if you want to kind of, if it's a 3-ton, put 3 zeros after that, and just remember your math for you need 500 to 600 square feet
yeah, per ton.
per ton.
I mean, most of the houses you're going to be dealing with when you're dealing with
Three-
a flip.
three tons.
Yeah, you're dealing with 3 to 4 tons. I mean,
Right.
the 5-ton is really for the larger homes. So if that's your niche, then
Right. So so if you're talking about
and
3 to
5-ton
3 to
is as
4
large as it
tons.
goes. Then you're doing double time after that.
Right.
You're buying multiple units.
So 3-ton about 3,500 right now. 4-ton around 4,000. Mm-hmm. So just remember those. And then if you get inside and you have somebody go look in that attic, which I don't often, I don't always get up into the attic when I just walk a property for the first time.
Yep.
So depending on how old that outdoor AC is, if it looks relatively new, I may not budget in for that indoor. You may want to about double that price, add another 3,500 for the indoor unit, for the indoor furnace.
Yep.
So just in case, I mean, great if you end up not replacing it. You just got an extra $3,500 in your budget.
Yeah.
Or
for
profit.
something sexy.
Well, sexy or like the surprises.
Yeah, that pop like Jess was talking about last week, just having that one item, pick the kitchen or the master bath to have that one wow item.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, it's, just take down before you go to your next house that you're going to walk, take down, what you're going to spend per pier, and look at that square footage even before you go out and go, all right, so if foundation's really bad, I know that it's $250 per pier. I take 2,000 square feet,
Yeah,
I'm gonna need about
a little bit of
I'm gonna need about
homework
20
before you go
Right
meet
before-
with that wholesaler or go view that property.
You know what the square footage is, so you
Yeah.
would know what tonnage the unit needs to be.
Yep.
And when you go out and look at the side of a house and see the outdoor AC, you can look right on there and go, okay, this one says it's a 3-ton. Yeah, that's what I was expecting, and that's
Yep.
good.
Yep, exactly. So.
All right, your forte.
Oh, so next is roofing. So roofing can be a big ticket item and also can be an issue, kind of like foundation. You want the bones of the property to be good. And part of the bones is, we're talking about roofing, because if that's not good, then it's going to mess up the rest of your stuff pretty quick. So roofing, like everything else, each year material costs go up. So this year it's always something. Like, I'm not even going to joke about that. Well, I am going to joke about this because it's always something. It's either the demand is so high that we can't get it out fast enough, so it costs a little bit more. There's, the demand is so high, we're just having to produce so much.
Right, because there was a windstorm
Or there's this, or there's
tornado
that.
or something.
Or as it is now, demand has been kind of low, so there's been a slow of things, so prices have
Prices
gone
are
up.
high.
Like, it doesn't matter what's going on in the world, prices have gone up since last season.
And for those of you who don't know, for those of you out there who don't know, Jay Lee, you were how old when you first started inspecting roofs?
Inspecting roofs, I was in my 22 when I got my adjuster's license, 22, 23.
Adjuster's license. So,
Yeah.
I mean, she even had her license to do this.
Yeah, my parents bought a roofing company, and so we were trying to keep it all in the family, and so
Which is awesome.
Yeah, I learned how to measure a roof. My mom and I would go and give estimates, and go work neighborhoods, knock on doors, and give estimates, and we'd have our uncle out there at the corner going, kind of bringing legitimacy to us measuring the roof, because immediately people are like, what? 2 chicks are about to get on my roof. We're like, no, see, there's a dude. He's just holding up the truck.
Yeah, he doesn't know what he's doing. We do.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. But he's here to make sure that we do it right.
So
Anyway.
right. And so for those people though who haven't been doing this,
Yeah.
For
There's a lot
couple
to
decades.
Again, the same thing that we said earlier. Please check with your Better Business Bureau. Check and make sure the longevity, not just their rating, because they could have that rating. They could have had a company that went sour, had a C rating, and now they started a whole new company and they just posted it yesterday, and it's got an A++. Get references. And if they are the lowest bid, chances are they're not the best bid. They're not, and also one of the things, the last time we talked about roofing and contracting, construction and that sort of thing, I think we had TJ on. It's been a while. But TJ was just basically talking about, or maybe that was when we were doing the
TJ.
Fridays. Yeah. TJ was talking about how he would get a deposit, but that was only when he was doing an entire house. Then you're kind of like what Jess was saying. If you're doing an entire reno of a house, then yes, you're kind of paying them as they go,
Right.
as things get completed. But with roofing, that's one job. Do not pay them any money till that job is done.
and by the way, that job is done in a day.
Yeah, on smaller homes, it's done like that. But on larger homes, it can take more than a couple of days. But we're talking about a lot of squares. I mean, it's got to be quite a bit.
Squares.
That's how they measure roofing, is squares.
And how big is the square?
It's about 100 square feet. And people often make the assumption that, okay, my house is 2,000 square feet, so
That means I got 20 squares. No, you don't.
no. Because now we have to there's all the waste,
Remember,
the pitch.
but we also have the pitch.
Yeah.
This might be 2,000 square feet.
Yeah,
but
if it's
then
flat.
everybody remember your trigonometry.
Yep.
This is not 2,000 square feet.
Exactly. So you've got the pitch, you've got how cut up is that roof, then that's also going to determine how much waste there is. People usually add on about 20% for waste
For
because
waste.
you have to, it's going to get cut up. So it's not exact. So when you're calling that roofing company of, hey, can you give me an estimate? It's 2,000 square feet, it's
Single story versus double story.
Yeah, because
I mean-
you get charged more for
You should.
for 2-story, anything over 1 story you get charged for, and anything that's considered steep, you get charged extra for.
So what, not that, I'm out there with whatever, is it a protractor where you stood up there
yeah,
and
and you
go
gauge.
and I'm like looking through a thing going, oh yeah, that angle right there, that's like
Yeah.
32 degrees spot on.
Well, you're going to, it varies depending on how, the newer builds that are out there are all kinds of cut up. They're 2 stories. They're steep, like super steep,
Right, because if you've got different angles coming together
Yep.
and they've got different valleys going into it, and what does that look like?
That's gonna be more expensive. So, and it varies. A 7 to 10 pitch is gonna be more than what we call a walk-on. A walk-on is just a pretty low grade, up to 4 or 5 pitch. It's to where you're not having a panic attack when you're walking on this roof. You don't feel like you have to have a harness. You probably, when you were a kid, got on a roof like that. Maybe you dropped.
But if you're like having to like,
yeah.
what is it, catwalk it or bear walk it, bear crawl it,
Yeah,
bear
the
crawl
bear
it up.
claw-
If you're bear clawing it up that roof, yeah, that's a steep roof.
Yeah.
So, just the basic one. If we're talking about just your basic kind of little ranch,
Yeah, if you're talking-
2,000 square feet, you've got how many squares is that?
Well, I don't want to go.
We don't want to say specifics.
Yes, how many squares? How about if you're out there and you're trying to guess what is this going to cost me? You can go ahead and do the square footage, like multiply it by 20%, and go ahead and estimate about 200. The prices just went up, as I mentioned.
Yes.
I had to make adjustments this morning to my price list. So you're looking at, for a 3-tab, and which I'll go back and talk about the different grades of roof materials here in a second. But a 3-tab, you're
Which is
looking
the nice
at,
one, which is the one you should always put on your flip.
3-tab is not. That's the
Oh,
cheap
it's not?
one. It's the dimensional that's the one that's
the dimensional one.
Yeah, the dimensional.
Okay, so the 3 is 3
it's
tab
really
is that
flat.
gross one?
Yeah, it's the cheapest one you can get pretty much. And that one's about $220 to $250 a square right now. Wow. So it's gone up.
That's
the
gone
last
up a lot.
time we talked about this, which was about a year and a half ago or something like that, it was $175
Yeah.
to $225.
No, I know.
Now it's $220. I mean, everything's gone up about $40-$50, something like that. So
But that's a high percentage. I mean, that's going up 30%.
yeah.
So exactly, basically what I said with appliances.
Yeah, it's
That
gone
stuff
up.
has gone up that
Yeah.
that much. Again, I think it's a break in the supply chain, and it's just more expensive for us to get goods
Absolutely.
and materials right now. So yeah, that's
There you go,
crazy.
COVID.
It's another COVID miracle. God bless 2020. My roof now costs like 30% more.
Yeah. And so for the dimensional, that's the most common and is a nice roof. You have different grades of it. They don't really offer a 20-year. They call it something else, but it used to be like they had the lowest grade and then it goes on. But
I always loved seeing that. It's like, okay, you can get this 50-year shingle and a 20-year shingle or a 30-year shingle. And I'm like, kind of jackass buys a 50-year shingle in like Texas where we got hail.
The thing is,
every year.
the 50-year is more durable, but you also get an insurance deduction for having a 40 or on up year shingle.
Really?
Yeah, and also metal,
So that's
some tile, that
30%
sort of thing.
insurance deduction?
I don't know about that, but anyway, because it is more durable, and they feel like the insurance companies know they won't have to replace your roof as often.
As often.
Yes. Now, just real quick, as far as the shingles that are available out there, you've got the 3-tab, you've got dimensional, and the dimensional has all these different lifetimes. Don't be confused by the lifetimes. The lifetimes is about durability, but that does not mean that you can have that shingle for 40 years. Yeah,
You're not going to
especially
have-
in Texas. You're
Well,
not.
Anywhere that you've got regular hail.
Regular hail, where you've got
Wind.
wind, where you've got tornadic activity, hurricane activity, you're just not, that's not what it means. It means if there was absolutely nothing going on and nothing ever hit this roof,
And
then
depending-
it might
Well, and think
last
about-
that long.
Think about where that leaves in the United States right now.
Yeah,
I mean, even out in California, they've got earthquakes.
yeah.
So they're, I mean, you could rip up a roof really easily, and as soon as that happens,
Yeah.
you got to go replace all those shingles anyways.
Yeah.
So, but you're saying the 50-year is more durable.
It
So
is.
it'll last.
It'll last longer. You might make it through a couple of hailstorms,
Which is good.
And you get a deduction with your insurance policy because of that. Anything that's considered a class 4, which is the longer lifetime shingles or metal roofs. So that you've got-
Are the metal roofs that good?
metal roofs are fabulous. They're really good. The one thing you've got to remember if you're putting a metal roof on your house or on your investment, really on your investment, it'll just help sell the house. If it's on your personal house, then you're going to end up getting a deduction with your insurance policy. But the next time that hailstorm comes through, if it's like our panel, which is the one that you kind of, it's flat and then there's a hump. And it's flat,
Yeah.
kind of what you see on barns and stuff. If it's the R panel, it's easier to spot. If it's a metal shingle that looks like shake or looks like something else, then it's not as easy to spot. But when we get a hailstorm, it hits that metal, it'll dent it.
That's what
Insurance
I've
doesn't pay for that.
Right.
That's just wear and tear. So if it gets dented up and you want it replaced because it looks ugly, well, too stinking bad.
Can you get somebody who does like scratch and dent to go out there and do that?
I mean, there are
on like the
people.
cars.
There are people
They
that'll
like
go
where
out there.
they rub it and it pops out the dent out of the metal.
Although I don't know that there's anybody that rubs out maybe that's a new company.
It should be.
Hey, especially in Texas. But as far as metal goes, it is more durable. You just got to remember.
And quick subtle plug, who has a roofing company?
I do.
Yeah.
It's Jimco Roofing if you need any estimates. We've been in business since 1981. So, and you can check all the BBBs and...
Oh, and I can vouch for them because
Yeah.
they did my roof last year when it got blown off by a windstorm.
Oh, yeah, that's right. By the windstorm that was really more like a tornado.
Right.
In
I'm like,
another subtle plug, so does Jess from last week.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah,
that's
so-
true. But
I
it's
was gonna
not
say
his
both.
show.
I know.
oh, was that?
I
Was that the answer you were looking for?
know. No. I was looking
Yeah.
for both.
No,
It's
it
like-
is. And Jess has one too. Hey,
You're
Jess.
like,
Hey, Jess.
"Nah."
You'll have to go to his show to find out which one that is. But anyway, so
So obviously, there's a ton of different choices in roofing.
yeah.
Please don't put 3-tab on your flip.
Well, unless
it
it's
takes
in a
money-
neighborhood that, has mostly 3-tab, then you don't want to.
I agree, but if you are totally out of money, do it. But you
Yeah.
even walk into a neighborhood that only has 3-tab, and you put that dimensional, shingle
It does-
on the
it
roof.
does make it pop.
I'm not kidding you. It gives the impression when you're walking up to it that it is a more expensive house.
Yeah. I agree. And if you ever drive through a neighborhood, I look at roofs all the time because that's,
If it's a
the
mobile
family.
home,
But
you can put the 3-tab on there.
and most of them do either that or it's
Yeah.
tar and gravel. So just take a look around and you'll be able to tell the difference. The other thing you want to remember when you're looking at a house to invest in is go ahead. You don't have to really dive in and get on top of the roof, but if you've got a ladder, which if you're really investigating a property and you're about to go ahead and purchase it, and you're paying cash or you're buying it from a wholesaler, they don't know how many layers is on that roof. It's not uncommon for there to be more than one layer. And really and truly, if you just prop a ladder up next to the house and you pull up the first
You'll see if there's
shingle,
another layer.
you'll know if there's another layer there. So most of the time, not always, because sometimes they don't do double
Sometimes-
layer ridge.
Sometimes you can even see it.
Yeah.
You can see that. Oh, wow, that's thick. And I've bought houses that had 3 layers.
Yes.
And the
which
one-
is actually not legal.
No, it's not.
So
But the important thing to remember with that is that your cost is going to go up on that roof because of this sheer demo.
yeah,
And the waste
tear off
that has to be-
becomes more. So that, and then take a look, see if the roof line is wavy. If it's wavy, then you probably have bad decking, and bad decking means more money because they're going to have to go in there and tear out, all of that decking and put down new decking.
So a dollar amount.
For decking, which that has gone up as well, expect to be around $150 a square. So,
And a square is 100 square feet, 10
Yeah.
by 10.
So if you go up there, and it's not uncommon for it to just be like 2 squares that need new decking because there was a leak there and now that decking's gone bad.
And you're going to notice it when you go and look at that roof because it is wavy. And you'll be able to stand down there and go, oh, look at that. Or you'll see it literally sag down.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it
the
might be
sagging.
the only place.
Sometimes it's not bad decking. Every once in a while you just have a warped piece of wood. But you can kind of go if you go up into the attic and just peek around, you'll be able to see the stains or you'll be able to see if there's any wood rot, that kind of thing.
Right.
So-
And you do, if you've got something, even if it is just warped and it's, it's watertight, that's something you probably want to have replaced anyways, just from just the aesthetics when you walk up to the house. I mean,
Because people look at it and they're like, what's wrong with the roof?
right, and then they're, and then they're up there poking around and in the attic and making sure. But if everything looks great
Exactly.
from the ground, it should be good.
So you've got that for the decking, and then you can also...
How much was that per square?
That's about $150 per square.
$150 per square for decking, but again, remember that's per square, which is 100 square feet, 10 by 10.
And if you're trying to make your house, your flip, more energy efficient, if that's kind of your go-to, we're putting all new windows, we're doing this, we're doing that, and you have to replace the roof, go ahead and get that radiant barrier, because that's another note that you can sit there and boast about is we've got radiant barrier, which definitely helps
By
as
the
far as
way,
keeping...
That's cheap.
Yeah, that's super cheap.
You can
just
order
add that on.
Yeah, you can order that off the internet. It does make a huge difference.
Yeah.
in how well your house heats and cools. But again, I just had a handyman go in and staple it.
Yeah, you can get the stuff that you just go in and you put in the interior, but then there's also the radiant barrier that you can put underneath the shingle as well.
Oh, on the outside. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
Anyway, I mean, that's pretty much the gist of it. If it's super steep or 2 levels, you're going to be paying more. You know, that starts at about $10 a square on up to about $25 or $30 a square, depending on how steep it is.
That's for just the shingles.
That's just for the shingles. They
So
just
10 to
add that.
35.
They add that on to the amount that the base that they're charging as far as the price per square. So if they're charging $250 per square and it's steep and cut up, then and 2-story, then you're probably paying an extra $30. So now you're at $280 a square for a dimensional shingle. So anyway, we have. Oh, I meant to say the gable roof and the hip roof. Those are basically the 2 different roofs, and it depends on that. Also can add a little bit more. The hip roof adds a little bit more faucets, more shingles, more waste. Insurance allows up to 2 layers. We mentioned that 3 layers was too much.
Right, 3 layers is too much. So if I went out to my flip and I saw that it already had a layer of shingles on, and I just kind of want to spruce it up and put a new layer of shingles on top of that.
Yep.
You can do that.
You can do that, and then you don't have the tear off. So it'll be a little bit. The reason people typically have more than 1 layer is because it was going to save them some money, and it will save you a little bit of money. I don't have that.
Like how much it will, like, you know, how much.
I feel like it's only about $20 a square savings or something like that, 15 to 20, but it's enough if you're trying to cut it really thin.
And so when we're figuring out how many, you know, what's the average, just the main, you know, that 1980s ranch house, you know, or 70s,
Yep.
90s, you know, just the basic pitched roof.
Well, like I just disputed yesterday, I was in a protest hearing for taxes.
Yes.
And we had just done an estimate for this roof, and it was a 1979 roof, 2000, I think it was like 2,200 square feet, and it's $5,500.
$5,500 for
Yeah.
a 2,200 square foot,
Yeah.
1970s.
Easy walk on, you know.
Right. Just
So-
single story.
Story, yeah, basic house.
Was that for the 3-tab or for the dimensional?
That was for the dimensional, but the lowest
Nice.
grade dimensional that there was.
But that's okay. But at
That's
least
okay.
it's still the
okay.
dimensional. So I mean, $5,500 for. I mean, that's the basic house that, you know, that you're going to be able to find that great deal on. That you're
Yeah.
going to want to go flip. Not to mention I mean, they're highly desirable depending on what suburb you're in right now. You know, it's that typical little suburban
Easy. Yep.
neighborhood, and so you go-
3-1, 3-2, yeah. But those you're looking at anywhere. Average cost of a average home is anywhere from $5,000 to $7,000.
Wow.
So it's not. It won't break the bank unless you missed it and now you've already spent the bank.
So right, and the crazy thing is, you know, walk up and just be honest with yourself when you're looking at this project, because people so often are like, "Oh, I love this house," for whatever crazy reason, right? They fell in love with the front door. You know,
Yeah.
you can go put that front door anywhere you want, but for some reason, you know, this house spoke to them, and so they try to take that project and just fit it in the box and go, well, you know, I think that roof is okay. We're just going to take that out, you know, and I'm going to
Yeah.
spend it on flooring or a kitchen or something like that.
Well, and I will tell you that, you know, from the realtor side of things, whenever I am representing the buyer, I mean, we always have the roof inspected, but not just because I have a roofing company, but it's always inspected because they need to make sure they can insure it. And that's a big deal because a lot of people will take that insurance money and not replace their roof.
Right.
And then if they go to sell it, they haven't replaced the roof, the next insurance company is not going to insure it unless there's a new roof on it. So you need to make sure that if you're going to go and sell it and you decided, okay, I'm not getting a new roof, it needs to be insurable. because no buyer is going to be able to do it. And then here you are a week out from closing or 2 weeks out from closing, having to put a roof on it that you didn't budget for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's not insurable.
Because it's not insurable. And and you need to get it closed anyway. So.
And another thing to consider is that roofers are not required to have a license in Texas. I mean, most large roofing companies are trying to advocate for a required license for GCs and for roofing companies, but they don't have to have a license. So anybody can say, I'm a roofer, you know.
I had an investor. Well, I was selling the house, owner finance, but I put money into escrow for this new investor who was buying this building from me. Right, it was a multifamily building, and I didn't put into the clause, hey, you've got to use somebody who's licensed, who's reputable. So yeah, they took all the escrow money, but then they put the shoddiest roof on there. And then they called me for help because they're like, okay, well, I hired this guy.
Yeah.
Turned out he had just gotten out of prison. Like within days.
Wow.
And then he was in the middle of putting their roof on. And they paid him some money up front. And then he got picked up for parole violation and was back.
Oh, okay.
So it all happened in the span of this roofing job. And I'm like, you hired somebody who he's in jail.
Yeah.
I'm like, he's not going to be able to finish that roof for you.
Yeah.
How much money did you get this guy?
Yeah. And again, don't give, for jobs like that, don't give any money up front. There are plenty of investor-friendly roofing companies out there that will go ahead and they'll get that roof on. You are no money out of pocket until that thing is done. You know, I don't know.
And that's just that's how roofing companies work.
Yeah. That's how roofing companies work. I mean, every storm season, we all see it on the news. There's some, horror story, or there's some grandma that, well, I gave them $5,000 and I haven't seen them since, and I feel bad for them. But don't give anybody any money up front when it comes to those kind of jobs.
You know, for so many. I buy supplies. I pay for them over the phone. Mm-hmm. People are like, well, how do you do this? I go, just negotiate labor only and pay for materials over the phone. They can go pick them up. They can charge you to pick them up.
Yep.
But, that way they're not out anything, time, labor and time, but it's not like they're out of material money either, so it's a nice common ground.
Yep. Well, so those are the big things to remember whenever you're trying to hire somebody, or you're deciding, or trying to decide who to go with.
Yeah.
Or, you just call me Jim Code Roofing.
Well, and roofing estimates are free.
Yeah, roofing estimates are free.
But remember, $5,000 to $7,000 when you're going and bidding just a standard single story, not steep, not anything crazy.
Yeah, not a ton of layers, no deckings involved. We're just talking just easy breezy.
Easy breezy. And so, those are your three major things. And all of those things, you should know, you can put those down and go, okay, if this needs to be done, it's going to be this much. If this needs to be done, it's going to be this much. It's surprising, before you even go walk this property, you can have a checklist and basically have your rehab budget.
Yeah.
Done.
And then if it doesn't need it, you walk the property, it doesn't need it.
And then you cross it off the list.
But I don't need that. This one's not going to need that. So it'll just help you, especially if you're in a situation where you're dealing with a wholesaler and there's 5 other people looking at the property. You can walk through and you can estimate these things really quickly.
Well, and a shout out to, George Abreu with, after the 2008 market crash, I started wholesaling with my Fest home buyers.
Oh,
and Eric Badawala and George and I, we started going out and seeing all of these foreclosures. I was seeing probably 40 to 50 foreclosures a week, starting in January 2009, going all the way through 2010. And I would just have a clipboard.
Yep.
And I would have most of this stuff written out before I even got to that property, because I'm like, all right, let me look at a picture of it. Okay, it's this age, it's this square footage, this is kind of an estimate on what we're going to need. And then I would just go there and go, okay, yeah, we need that. Circle it. Yep. Circle this. How many bathrooms are here?
Yep.
You got one master, one hall. So, the kitchen, 10 by 10,
Yep.
12 by 12. And if you have a cheat sheet before you ever go out and walk these properties,
you're going to be more prepared. It's not going to be overwhelming, and you're going to be able to tell pretty quickly.
You're
if this
also not
deal-
emotionally
Yeah.
attached. If you go there and you kind of know what the stuff costs and you're checking off going, yep, we need this, we need this, we need this. Here's my budget for this house.
Well, and I can't tell you how many times I've gone to meet a wholesaler and I already know what it's going to take to
Rehab it.
To rehab it. I walk through and I'm like, there's no money here. Like, there's no money. And yet you've got 5 people still standing there ready to bid. It's
Yes.
so disheartening. I'm
Yes.
like, I'm out.
When you have the beehive of like wholesaler activity going on and you show up and you're like, wait a minute, I know that this is going to cost, like, why are we all still standing here?
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, it's a great house, I want to buy this.
Well, it's one thing to know the ARV and what you can get for it, but we've talked about this many times is, you need to make sure those margins fit. And that part of that margin, part of figuring that out is what is your cost for rehab? You got to make sure there's enough meat on the bone at the end of the day to make it worth your while. I don't know how many people I've talked to that, I made 10,000. Did you?
No, you got to check at closing for 10,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, but originally you put into it was all your time and $12,000.
Yeah. How many people have we talked to that I was like, they got paid less than minimum wage for the amount of time that they put into the property?
In that, because what do I always say? The first thing you do when you get a flip, find out what your daily hold is, right? And so I know down to, in some cases, the hour, what that property is costing me. But then when you go back to the end and you're like, okay, well, that was great. That took 9 months of my time and shouldn't take 9 months, by the way. I'm exaggerating. But even it took 30 days of your time.
Yeah.
And it was 30 real days. And
Yeah.
you're working more than just being on site. Because when you go home at night, you got to look at those receipts. You got to keep
you're
track
trying
of
to do
everything.
your
You got to get
bookkeeping.
ready for
Yeah.
the next day. Get supplies ordered. Get guys where they need to be. So when you're looking at all that, gosh, I made like $2 an hour.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just like we were talking when we had Jess on the show.
Jess on last week, yeah.
He was talking about you need to look at that first property as that's your education.
Education.
If you make money on that first flip, then that is a damn good education. But for the most part, it's going to be just an education.
An education cost.
Yeah.
Wow.
And sometimes, it's not your first one that you break even on.
I know.
Sometimes it's your 6th one.
Yeah.
Or your 10th one.
And
or,
sometimes you're like, oh my God, I made so much money on this first one, because you really can't do math and you don't realize all the extra costs that you didn't figure in.
Yeah.
And then, taxes. Mm-hmm. Don't forget about, capital
what you're
gains.
going to have to pay.
What you're going to have to pay taxes on that. And then, down the road, you're, okay, you didn't even make as much on that one, so.
Yeah.
Happens.
So the last ticket item that we have is electrical.
Oh.
Yeah. So find yourself a good electrician, because this is one, that obviously if I go through a house, I don't know anything about electrical, I mean, I know if the lighting looks crappy. I also know one thing that you need to consider is between 1950 and 1980, the breaker boxes.
Yes. Do you have an old Imperial?
Yeah. Or FedPack.
I have one in my house.
Yeah. And it's not that they don't work. I mean, they can, but
They're
they're
just-
also known as being fire hazards.
Right.
And they're usually in a closet or they're someplace, and now they are required to be outside of the house, and usually in the garage, but outside of the house.
So mine is in the garage.
Okay.
But it is, I should have made the last homeowner that I bought it from, I should have made them replace it. And I
Yeah.
didn't, because I was like, house has been here a while.
Yeah.
But again, for me to go sell this house, which I'm looking to do, means I'm going to be upgrading that electrical. So that's a
Yeah.
huge thing. And when I'm walking around, look at, if you've got a question, like if you start look at the height of the switches, look at the height of the outlets. If you see that those aren't at your regular code level, and I'm just saying, does it jump out and it looks wrong?
Yeah.
That electrician might not have known what he was doing.
Yeah.
And sometimes really just sticking your head up into the attic and seeing a rat's nest of wires.
I have been at a property where we went up into the attic, had an inspection on a property, and because they did an addition to the property, the amount of extension cords up there
I've seen
was crazy.
Extension cords.
Extension cords.
I've seen it
and that's what was lighting an entire addition.
No, it's just no. I've seen that as well, and I've seen it where, which just shouldn't be. This is never something that should be done, but it was like hardwired in on one side of the extension cord, and then run down, and then stuff was plugged into that side, and wire was. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, what the heck's going on here?
Oh, it's bad. So, but that's one thing you want to look for. You're also going to look for any exposed wires. So if you see anything, and they might even have the caps on them, right? Those little screw nut caps that will technically, you're thinking, okay, well, that's safe. You should never see any exposed wires, period. But a big thing that's going to tip you off, make sure and play with all the lights. If you've got a light that doesn't work, just doesn't work at all, go over to the breaker box. Of course, a lot of us buy foreclosures.
Yeah.
And a lot of times there's no power onto these things.
Exactly. So you're dealing with properties that have no power, you're kind of guesswork. So really and truly, the first thing you should do is go to the breaker box and see if it's back or if it's a...
But more importantly, does it have breakers? Because...
Yeah, what
you'd
does
be
it look like?
Surprised it might not have breakers at all, because somebody might have just taken those because they're worth money.
Yeah. But you're looking at, to replace a box like that, you're looking at somewhere between $1,500 on up to $35,000.
Depending on square footage.
Yeah, but just to replace that box and to be able to say we got a new box, and if it's in a closet, then what you want to do is you don't want to leave it in, you don't want to replace it and leave it in a closet. You want to replace it, and if you're getting a good electrician, they're going to tell you this. You're going to find a place close to that closet that's exterior and have it outside.
Correct. Or
into the garage.
Or into the garage is best for that breaker box.
Yep.
But get a good rule of thumb, and this is an estimate. All of these things I do is an estimate. $1 a square foot. If you're having to replace the breaker box.
$1 a square foot? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's about that, right? 1,800 square feet, $1,800.
Yeah, maybe.
2,000 square feet.
Yep.
$2,000. Again, that is just the breaker box. If you see any cuts above the outlets, there's a chance that wire's been cut and it's been pulled out.
Yeah, or
we don't
replace.
have it.
Some people do pigtails and they latch onto old wiring.
Steal it.
And or that's more common on properties you're going to be looking at. Most likely, then it's somebody stole
I don't
the
know how
copper
many
wiring.
houses that I've had to rewire, or that have disappeared with the electrical wire in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
I was working one neighborhood in particular where I rewired the same house 3 times in 2 weeks. I lost, 5 properties. And we started, at that point you're going, what can you do? And you're looking at the price of copper. Depending on your municipality, they tend to crack down on that, but there's always some place that they can sell that copper for. Yeah. So they pull out that Romex and then they strip off the plastic casing. Have we seen a lot of that lately? No, not as much. But when we see the cost of precious metals start to rise, which guess what's going on right now? Everybody's buying gold, silver, copper, any precious metals like that, the price goes up. You have a higher rate of, theft goes up, and so you have a higher chance for vandalism on any of those vacant homes. So this is stuff you're going to have to be watching for in the next 6 to 12 months as we get more foreclosures and more vacant homes.
I just going to chime in just because, I've done a lot of these shows with you guys, on my own shows or whatever, and I just thought of a story that I haven't ever told on any of these things.
Yeah.
And it was about the wiring. Back when I first got into real estate, when I was like 22-ish, I had never realized that. Oh my gosh!
Sorry.
Y'all both. It's amazing. I actually had never realized that there was ghettos in Fort Worth.
What?
Well, because I was from the suburbs of Euless.
Oh yeah, that's right.
You know, so
suburbs
you were
of
rich
Euless.
and
I was not rich. Trust.
compared to
Well, yeah.
Compared-
No, but it was like, so I got into real estate and I was, doing the buying, selling, flipping, wholesaling with a partner of mine, and I had no idea that people would walk in the middle of the street at 10 a.m. with a 40-ounce beer or whatever. But one of our flips.
so sheltered.
So one of my first flips, it was almost a situation like Kristen had way back, where you're like 80% done and they're going in there and the contractor calls you up and says, "Oh, BT Dubs," because BT Dubs was a thing back then. It wasn't. It was about 10 years prior, but whatever. All the wiring had been stripped, and it was just like it. So it was like this weird time of going, "Oh, there's a different reality out there."
It's
And but it was just like, who would? And I had no idea that
it's a lot.
Scrap metal.
I'm
like, just go steal something. Don't steal wiring out of a house.
Yeah.
That seems like a lot of work. Anyway, I just thought it was just a random thought.
I have to
don't know.
imagine it's a lot of work, but I mean, I've owned
Apparently
a
it
house,
pays.
showed up. The house was basically rehabbed, and I was looking for a tenant for it. And then in the garage, they set up folding chairs, and they just sat in there and
sat in there.
stripped it.
Yeah, they may have ordered pizza
They
for
even-
what
they
you know.
probably did. They did like beer and pizza and strip my house.
Hey, I meant to ask Ryan, what is that? I forget what it's called. Whenever you put the, it's got a trash can. It's the motion detector and the alarm that goes off. It's
Ring?
no, not ring. It's whenever you're rehabbing a house,
Oh, I don't.
and it's so freaking loud.
It's an alarm,
It's an alarm, yeah.
but it's a
motion-
portable. It's a portable alarm.
It's a
motion-
portable
yeah.
alarm. You
No,
can
you're right.
you go and you punch in the code, and then it's like this. It looks like
So, but another, if you're doing a rehab,
Mm-hmm.
and especially in a rougher neighborhood, which is the only place mine used to be,
yep.
having just a radio left on,
Yeah.
and I usually set it to like Hispanic talk radio, so they were speaking Spanish, so they wouldn't really, but it would sound like a couple guys having a conversation in there.
Yep.
And then have a couple lights on timers, and then you can buy fake security stickers from, like security alarm stickers
Yep.
from Amazon. You just go, oh yeah, it's like security system, and you just put that on all the windows around.
Well,
A lot of
that's
times-
little hacker tips right
There
there.
you go. That's what I started doing. I mean, I looked
Yeah.
into all sorts. I looked at like renting dogs,
Yeah.
which is not a bad idea either, except you got a dog.
There's 2 business ideas.
dog rental for protection of your foot.
Anyway, those are all the big ticket items. That you're talking about: HVAC, roofing, electrical, foundation. Those are the ones you definitely want to check before you put any money into that rehab.
Yes. And I mean, and again, what we were giving you for estimations, obviously those aren't professional estimates on this thing.
Yeah, I haven't
but
looked at your house.
Right.
Yeah.
It is just when you go there, just to go, yes, this needs to be there, because it's going to give you a ballpark idea of what that's
It's all
going to
about the
cost.
ballpark, to just trying to
Get close to your offer.
Yeah.
Right? What should you be paying for this? Because if you go in and you offer way too much, getting them down to the right number,
It's
okay,
harder.
maybe you need them to come down another $2,000 or $3,000. Well, that's going to be a lot easier than, I left off $20,000 in repairs.
Yep.
Should have known about that, but I just didn't when I made that offer.
Yep. But that's about it as far as all of our big ticket items. If
Yeah.
y'all have any questions whatsoever, be sure to, comment, ask us questions. We'll get back on here and try to answer as much of them as we can.
We answer DMs too, but it's really great if you put it in the comment section of all of this, because then it helps everybody, because a lot of
people are thinking the same thing, or they
and
want.
they want
Yeah.
to know that answer, and it's really great if they can already see it and answer.
So Terry.
Hi, Terry. Terry
Hi there.
Rodriguez. Yeah, she's great.
Can you read that, or do you?
Yeah,
read it?
she wants to know if we're carrying insurance on these rehabs in case there's vandalism or to cover vandalism. And
Remember, theft is not vandalism.
yeah,
So if they come in and they steal the wire from your house, that is not covered by vandalism insurance.
you definitely want to go ahead and get insurance though. But get insurance, make sure that your insurance company knows that the property is vacant.
It's a vacant
because
dwelling
there's a
policy.
difference in the policy.
But you can get, there is a certain type of insurance premium add-on that will cover theft. So if you're working, in a riskier area.
You want to get it.
Yes.
I mean, what was it? I think RJ in the spring or something showed up at one of his and the AC was gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it happens. I mean, it happens,
it
all the
happens
time.
often.
I flipped a house up in McKinney.
Yep.
Like old town McKinney, like walk one block over to like all the cute little wine shops and stuff like that. And I'm like, nobody's going to come take an AC here. Oh, I lost
Nobody
two.
comes to this neighborhood to steal.
Oh my God, I know. I'm like, okay, yeah, well, hi. Well, and dumb me, right? Because afterwards I was like, yeah, that was dumb. I'm like, obviously they have a car. Well, I'm just saying, if you're going to steal an outdoor AC, the whole thing, obviously you have a truck.
Yeah.
I mean, you're mobile.
Yeah.
It's not like you're running down the street.
Well, and that
carrying
right
an
there
AC.
is a prime example of just because you've been doing this for a while doesn't mean that you don't still make mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been doing it about 5 years, but
Yeah.
I just had that stupid inclination. I'm
That's
like, oh, it's
McKinney.
like, they're nice people that live around here. God forbid somebody drive up to steal.
Yeah. Drive to a nicer neighborhood to steal.
By the way, also, yes, that Machiavelli cage that people put around it, not always foolproof. I've had people back up to those with trucks,
yeah,
and
chain them.
chain it, and just rip the whole thing. And doing that, then they also usually get the copper that is running up the side of the house, and that's all of a sudden you come over, you're like, what the hell
heck
just happened here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You live and learn. So
God bless this business.
it's always interesting. Always good stories.
I mean, people would know like how much money stupid money I've lost just because
Yeah.
I was like, that's gonna be fine.
It'll be fine.
Fine.
Yeah.
I don't need to get that dog.
Yeah. I've done the whole, it'll be fine. I can do that.
I can do
that.
that.
Yeah.
I don't need to pay for somebody to do that.
Yeah.
Look at me. I got 2 hands.
Anyway, we hope that y'all found this helpful. And again, if you have any questions or any comments or even some helpful tips your own, you specialize in one of these things, drop it down in the comments, like, share, hit us up, follow, all of that business. I'm Jay Lee Thompson with Texel Real Estate. If you guys have any properties out there in the Arlington, Fort Worth area, I'm kind of looking out that way. I am looking for flips or buy and hold right now. So go ahead and shoot me a comment.
And I'm Kristen Gerst with Capricorn Mortgage Investments. I am really looking for owner finance mortgage notes to buy. So if you
Performing.
Yeah, I really like performing.
Yep.
If you have non-performing note tapes too, I'd love to see those as long as they're direct. Please don't daisy chain something to me because
No daisy chains.
that's a waste of time.
Yep. Anyway, y'all have a wonderful weekend and thanks for joining us.